Welcome to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers with Linda Prio. Will it be possible to remain in my home as I age? Do I feel safe in my home? How do I figure out how much support I will need when my health needs start to change? What if I decide to move into a community instead? Which community will meet my needs now and in the future? Who will play a role in helping me with decision making? Do you ask yourself these same questions? Aging in Place Strategies and Answers can help you gain practical knowledge that will help you create your own Aging in Place roadmap. If you are already a care partner, a power of attorney, or in crisis mode with your Aging in Place strategy, you will learn what you need to know that you don't know. For over 20 years, I have been marketing Aging in Place services to clients and educating families and healthcare professionals in how to put aging in place strategies into place. When you utilize aging in place, you are allowed to choose where you want to live and make those decisions so that you can retain your quality of life. Welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. Today, we're going to be talking about the senior communities that we see popping up in our neighbors just about on every corner. And my regular listeners have heard me say this before. All senior living communities do not provide the same level of care. And some of you have learned this lesson the hard way. You've gotten in the car with your list of places that you wanted to check out, and you drove up and you got out of your car and you went in and you got their information and you talked to the sales manager. And then you went to the next place and the next place and the next place. And by the time you did that, sometimes people can get pretty confused, and then trying to figure out actually where your senior loved one is in their aging process can also be a challenge. And then matching senior community with that level of care that is needed can be a little frustrating, needless to say. Now, some of you might not have had that experience, so I don't want to take that away from you and assume that everybody's the same. But I've got Erin online with me today. Erin is from Senior Care Authority. Is that true or false, Erin? Is that
That's
true?
Yeah. Yep.
And so we're going to find out why that's true. And also that Erin talks to a lot of people as a franchise owner for Senior Care Authority that have shared that information with her. So today I'm going to share how, if you're looking for a senior living community, how you can give yourself a break and make that process a little easier. First of all, you can do it all yourself and see how that works for you. You could also hire a private pay care manager with, and here's the caveat, expertise and knowledge in assessments needed to determine what level of care your loved one is at, but also have a working knowledge of the care communities in your particular location and your budget, and then how that would work, and then touring the recommended communities. So that's another way you can find the perfect community and the perfect fit for your loved one. Or you could reach out to a Senior Care Authority franchise that will help guide you through the process. And without diving too deeply into the process of how this care model works, Senior Care Authority knows their community and what they have to offer as far as senior living the best. They've done walkthroughs, they've met with sales managers, they know staff at the communities, and they know costs of the communities and the level of care that they offer. And when Senior Care Authority team members meet with families, they're usually asking for information about budget. They're asking information about diagnosis and ability to transfer, feed themselves, dress and groom, all kinds of questions, assessment questions that will help them and guide them into the proper level of care at this time for your loved one. You do not pay necessarily for this placement option. I see Erin shaking her head yes at us, at me. And because Senior Care Authority has contractual agreements with communities that will actually pay for this service when a senior and their family choose to move into a community. Now, just to provide full disclosure, there are some communities that do not have contracts with placement agencies, and so you'll need to check your local franchise or the person that you're working with to see if there might be additional fees involved in those kinds of placements. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Do you want assisted living services but don't want to leave your home? Call Continuum at 314-863-9912. Our professional team has 20-plus years of experience and will help you create the perfect care solution that meets your current and future needs. Continuum supports independence at every stage of life. Call 314-863-9912 for a free consultation or visit us at continuumcare.com.
Let's return to the podcast. But it is my pleasure to introduce Erin Dwyer-Bush to you today. She owns a Senior Care Authority franchise in the St. Louis area. So, Erin, say hello to my listeners.
Hello, listeners. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, my listeners love good information, so I know that they're in good hands today, and I can't thank you enough for joining me today, Erin. Erin loves helping people. And this is evident in her educational background and her career choices. Erin has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Master's in Communication Disorders, and she has spent 17 years working with children and adults with special needs as a speech language pathologist. Erin decided to, what?
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Thank you for acknowledging that.
It is. It's hard to say. And I'm a speech language pathologist, so it's hard for me to say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Erin decided to start her Senior Care Authority business because she saw the growing number of baby boomers and their families seeking guidance in choosing the right level of care for their loved one and the right community. However, the Senior Care Authority franchise is more than a placement agency, and you're going to find out more about what this placement agency offers. But Erin has a lot of great experience, obviously, in her educational background and in her employment, but she is also a certified senior advisor. She's a certified dementia practitioner and a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. And for those that didn't hear that, I'm going to say that one more time. She is a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. So I can assure you that you'll be in good hands when you contact Erin and her team, but also that this is a national franchise. So there probably is a franchise in your area that can help you with your communities and the assessments that you're going to need. So one of the reasons that I wanted to bring Erin on my podcast is to help listeners understand that there is help out there when a community placement is needed and the value of what you offer, Erin. But I also wanted to bring the Driving with Dignity, the Beyond Driving with Dignity program out to my listeners because there is not a day that goes by that this conversation is not happening. And Erin and I are kind of laughing about this a couple weeks ago, is that just because you have dementia doesn't mean you don't try to problem solve. And especially when your car has been disabled by a family member. It's amazing what tasks that someone can
they get
do.
very creative.
Someone can do. But this conversation is just hard. So let's get started today, Erin, and I would love for you to tell my listeners how you found out about this program.
Yes, I can't take all the credit. So over 6 years ago, a good friend of mine, Vicki Sproul, she's in the disability and senior space. She was doing these driving assessments. And I'm like, Well, that's interesting. I've never even thought about that, but there's a need. So I asked her, I said, "Hey, do you think I could do them as well? This is my background, and I really feel this passion for seniors and safety. And I feel like there's not a lot of oversight when it comes to renewing a license. It's pretty easy to pass. I've been with clients that it's kind of amazing how easy it is to get your license renewed." And she's like, "I'll introduce you to the owner of the program. The Beyond Driving with Dignity program was created by a wonderful gentleman named Matt Gerwell. He's a retired highway patrolman who lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he developed it based on not only what he saw in traffic stops and accidents and things like that, but also based on scientific research. So he put a lot, this is his baby, he put a lot into this. So I went through the training. I met Matt, I became a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. And then a couple years later, I wouldn't shut up about the program because I just loved it so much. And there's not a lot out there for driving safety with seniors. And so my franchisor, Frank Sampson, he wanted to learn a little bit more about it. He'd heard about it, but he really didn't know how it could translate to our business. And so eventually he decided that he was going to, you know, basically buy the program from Matt, and Matt came on board Senior Care Authority. So he's part of our franchise now. And we own the rights to the Beyond Driving with Dignity program. So that's how that happened.
That is awesome. And you're right. People go to the DMV or they go to their doctor. And so the adult children are like, I'm taking my mom to the doctor or my dad to the doctor. It is time for that doctor to tell my parent to give up the keys. And, doctors really just don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to say those words. And really, honestly, they don't know if this person can or they can't. So I don't think I would want my doctor to say that either without a proper evaluation. That wouldn't be fair to me as a patient. I don't think
Right.
so. We're asking them to do something that is a little bit beyond their scope. But yes, we are hoping that the DMV will then do their job. But again, it's minimal testing and it is not in the car testing.
Correct.
So this is where our expectation is not correct. And that's why when we ask the DMV, oh, well, should they be driving? They're like, I just renewed their license. Have a nice day. And then as a family member, you're like, oh, this was not good. I wanted this to happen and it's not. So this is where Erin and of course the Senior Care Authority franchise can really be helpful. So Erin, I know you've been in these conversations before. I know you've been sitting with family members and I know that when it was time for me to tell my mom it was time for her to stop driving, I heard later that she was really angry with me, and understandably so. So, how can we start a respectful conversation about driving? And then, two, what are some of the signs that we're beginning to see that would tell us it is time for us to have this proactive discussion?
Absolutely. Great questions. And it's a very difficult conversation. I've had clients say, I'd rather have the funeral conversation with mom and dad than the taking away the keys because a lot of times it's their last bastion of independence. So I get it. It's a very hard topic. And that's why I say, okay, let me handle it. I want you to remain the daughter. I want the spouse to remain the spouse. I want the doctor to remain the doctor. So let me be the one to deliver the news, be it pass or not pass, in a respectful manner and have it come from a neutral third party. I am not a family member. So you don't have that history of, well, I taught you to drive at 16 and I didn't take the keys away when you had a fender bender. There's none of that history. So we want to take that off the families and the doctors because they'd rather just refer out because they haven't seen them drive. But basically, I always say to families to start the conversation, have it in a neutral setting. Please don't do it in the car. Please, don't do it in that setting. Don't do it right after your mom has driven or while she's in the car. Have it in a neutral setting, in a calm time and, develop your thoughts and also have, data. So don't just come with, well, I just think you're a bad driver. If there are situations where, you've noticed the car maybe has some new dents or scratches, being observant on when things, have happened to the car and then just kind of, mom, what happened there to the front bumper there? She may not know, or she may know, or she may know and not tell you. So, but again, just having those little conversations and letting them know that you're aware, but just have it come from a place of your concern, not blaming them, not saying, you need to do XYZ, but mom, I'm really worried. I'm worried about your safety. Somebody could make a wrong turn and maybe you didn't react in time and you get hurt. Or, I just don't want you to get hurt in an accident. Can we just have this discussion? There's this person that takes a look at the driving. They're not from the DMV, they're not from the doctor's office. They're just an independent person that can give us some insight and maybe some tips on how to stay a safer driver longer.
That's wonderful.
That's
And
what
I
I
love
think.
and I love that third party assessment. And I advocate for those all day long, every day, for the exact reasons why you explained, Erin. It's so much better if Erin has to be the bad guy than you have to be the bad guy because it really preserves the relationship and it's based on fact. There is a report.
Right.
And that is, it's wonderful when you can get everybody on the same page. But there's always the family member who is more hardline. There's the one that's too soft. And the third party assessment and reporting that Erin does then says, oh my goodness, this is black and white. We don't have to guess. Erin has no skin in the game.
Right.
You know, if somebody
Right.
comes to you and says, oh, you need to pass my mom, it's like, no, I'm a professional. This is what I do.
Right. Or fail. I had one say the other day, he needs to fail today. I said, oh, I hear you. But I'm going to do my independent, study and judgment and look at the facts and then make my determination. So I'm not going to pass or fail someone because somebody wants it, No, that's not
Yeah.
how I work. So
Yeah,
yep.
I love that. And listen, I am so happy to pass that difficult conversation on to somebody. And obviously, there is a price point for this. So, could you just give us like a ballpark of what this might cost?
Right. So it's a flat fee of $400 and I come to the client. So I come to the senior wherever they're living, whether it's a senior community or their home. I'll go up to about 2 hours away. I do charge a little bit for mileage if I'm going over 45 minutes from, my home in Baldwin. But so yeah, I come to them and then I write the summary report and I mail it to them. And then if they do pass initially, part of the program is I will come out one additional time at no extra cost. So there's kind of this built-in almost insurance policy that, okay, well, mom passed today. Well, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Okay. Well, everyone progresses differently in their disease. So today your mom did really well, but let's keep an eye on it. Now we have a baseline and say 6, 9 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years, you can say, okay, I drove with mom. I knew how she did after your session. I know how she did on the tests. We've seen decline or there's been a health change, or she's on some new medications. Have me come back. And so we've given that senior, more time to drive. And so they feel like they've almost been given, a gift like, okay, you're not being super harsh that you're saying, hey, oh, you're okay today, but we don't know how we're going to be in 6, 9, 12 months. We don't have a crystal ball. So it gives them a little more time and a baseline. And I know you had asked about tips for, when it's time to have this conversation.
Uh-huh.
So those scratches I talked about, if you see mom or dad's car has more dents and scratches than you remember, or they don't, how they got there, that's kind of a sign that maybe you need to have the conversation. Obviously, if they've been pulled over by the police for their driving, that's time. Hopefully we'll do it before there's an accident. Basically, if they can't stay in their lane, if there have been vision or hearing changes, and cataracts, things like that. Maybe night driving is no longer safe. But yeah, those are kind of the beginning tips. Having a lot of close calls or near misses where, say you're in the car with your mom and she didn't see that stop sign, or she reacted too slow to it, that kind of thing. So those are some of the things we look for.
And a friend of mine told me that she knew it was time for her mother to consider changing her driving patterns when she called more than once saying, I don't know where I am. And fortunately, she knew her mom didn't go very far. So she said, just tell me what's on. What are you looking at? Like, what do you see? Do you see and she'll say, I see a Marshall's and then I see the highway. Okay, mom, that's great. So in some cases that was like a
Yes.
big clue there that even though they felt confident at the driving aspect. They're not really being aware of where they are, and there's something changing cognitively. So
Absolutely.
what do you do, Erin, before you get in the car? You just don't show up at the house and jump in the car. I am positive
No,
about that.
no, this is a long process. I'm there for a while. It's 2.5 hours, depending on how talkative they are, but average is about 2.5 hours. So I am doing a learning conversation. The beginning is just some boring paperwork where we're literally having the person sign some things to validate. I mean, I'm looking at their driver's license, but they're validating to me that they have valid auto insurance, that their driver's license, is valid. I'm looking at it as well. But they're acknowledging that. They're acknowledging that they know why I'm here today, that I am here to help them with their self-awareness regarding their driving skills, because it's not about age and it's not about diagnoses. It's about skill and awareness. So when we notice a skill decline, that's what we're trying to see, if there's a decline in skill. But basically, so we start with the boring paperwork, we sign a bunch of things. They have to give me written permission on who gets to talk about the report with, who gets to see the report. If there's a referring doctor, that doctor will automatically get a copy of the report. But if there's not a referring doctor, it's up to that client. And this is where the Beyond Driving with Dignity comes in. It is their program, and I'm working with them about how this proceeds. So they need to give me written permission. I'm not going to just be able to talk with their wife or daughter about this unless they give me written permission. So we're doing all of that. And then we're doing just some history. We're talking about, well, how do you feel about driving? There's some questionnaires, because some people are nervous drivers. Some people are nervous drivers in certain situations, and some are confident, some are overconfident. So we're just trying to find the gauge there. Are we keeping up with our vision appointments? Are we keeping up with our hearing appointments? How active are we socially, physically? There's so much to driving and aging that can be done to help stave off some of those things. So I want to know their social situation. How much do they need help with during the week, during the day? Are they falling a lot? There's a correlation between falling and being able to drive well. And of course, then I do cognitive assessments. I do some problem solving to see, because again, if you happen to get into an accident and you just drive away, well, that's illegal. That's not good. But if oh no, I pull over, I check on the person, I call the police, we exchange information. I wanted to make sure that they know how to problem solve and get through. Like you said, if we get lost, it's okay. We all get lost. But if we're getting lost in familiar environments, and you've gone to this doctor for 15 years and all of a sudden you can't get there, and then you don't know how to problem solve through that,
Right.
that's scary. So that's what we're trying to figure out. Can we problem solve through that? And then at the very end, if they pass all of that, they're cognitively, pretty good to go, or on the cusp. I'll get in the car with them and we do a driving exercise. So I am looking at the fit of the car. I am looking at how they're sitting in the car. I'm a car fit technician. So, are they sitting too close? Are they sitting too far away? Do they have a backup camera? If we have a reduced range of motion and we can't look behind us to back up, but we don't have a backup camera or oversized mirrors, there's a huge blind spot. And so that's a danger. You could run over a child or a person or
Right.
an
Right.
animal. So again, we want to make sure that the car's fitting them, that we can add adaptations or modifications to it if we need to. So I'm looking at the car fit, and then we go and we drive around for a while, and I have them go to various places, not their typical routine, but it's on familiar streets. It's their own vehicle, their familiar streets. We're going to places that they've been to before. I'm just changing the pattern to see if they can, navigate through and park and all that.
Absolutely. And that makes total sense. And boy, it just, you can see the depth of the program that you're going through. And I love that you have that follow-up visit. So let's say that you're talking to somebody and they are not able to answer some of your initial questions in the evaluation, and you're not going to get in the car with them. It's just obvious that you've done this part and it's a no-go. Have you ever had that happen?
Oh yes, happened this week. It happened Monday, actually. Yep. It's never fun because they've usually told their loved one that, oh, Erin's going to see you drive. And I'm like, so I try to tell them, hey, I only get in the car if it's safe to do so. So if someone is so cognitively, low on the scale, it's just not safe to get in the car. So there are scientific studies that are done that I quote in my report But it has been found that if somebody gets a 19 or below on the mini mental, and it's out of 30, if they get a 19 or below, we expect them to fail the on-road driving test with the DMV. So perfect score is a 30, 25 or above is considered normal cognition. So if you get to a 19 or below, we expect you to fail. Other studies have shown that if you get a 23, that's when you start having the conversation about it's time to start having a plan B and retire. Just again from the cognitive standpoint that we can't problem solve. Driving is an executive function. It's a privilege, not a right. So you need to be able to demonstrate those attention skills, memory, problem solving, quick reaction time, all of those different things. So if they're just not there, then there's no sense to get in the car. So I have to explain that. Well, you didn't see me drive. Well, and so I bring up those studies. I talk about it, and we talk through it until they feel comfortable or at least accept what I'm saying. And then, I try to gently just, say, hey, but you have great family and we have transportation
Yes.
opportunities for you. So I don't leave them high and dry. So we talk about that. I had one gentleman that all he wanted to do was go to church on Sundays and have breakfast after. And then he had Adoration Chapel on Wednesdays. And I said, well, do you do Adoration Chapel by yourself? He said, no, I have a prayer partner. And I said, well, where does your prayer partner live? Oh, she lives 2 doors down. So she literally has to pass your house to get to Adoration Chapel. I said, do you think she'd be willing to drive you? And the daughter's like, oh, yeah, I bet she will. So she called her. She goes, absolutely, I'm going there anyway. So we started to problem solve and develop plans so he could still be independent and do the things he wanted to do, but he got there safely and got home safely. So I don't leave him high and dry. I put a bunch of different resources in my summary report, but I'm also talking with the family about, okay, well, who can take dad to the doctor? Who can take, mom to the salon? Like, let's develop a plan. And when we need
Right.
to hire outside people, let's do it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's really important to do that level of problem solving. And then I like what you said that driving is not a right, it is a privilege. And this is just such a hard space. But I know that people are going to be with their loved ones through the holidays now. And just knowing that there's somebody can take this weight off and do it from a professional point of view, looking at the car, looking at the problem solving ability, and then of course doing the experiential driving with the person. So you had to deliver bad news. What about the person whose family said, "Oh, you've got to fail him"? And you said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I have to go through my assessments."
I
Was
have to
that,
be impartial.
yeah, was that still a fail, or did they generally fail?
No, he fails. He
He
fails.
failed. So
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So
They're
Erin,
usually they usually have a pulse on it. It's rare that it's the adult child or spouse that just selfishly wants. It's usually the other way around. I had one that said, "Oh, he has to pass. I don't have time to drive him around," and he actually failed. And so I'm like, "I'm sorry, that inconveniences you, but I mean, yeah, his cognition was very, very low. Like he had practiced. Unfortunately, he had practiced some of the things I was going to work on. I didn't know that they knew some of the tests, but they practiced them and he still failed. So, yeah, I said, he's just not safe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that inconveniences you, but what happens if he hurts or kills somebody?
right, right.
You
This is
know?
what it's all
Yeah.
about. Absolutely. It's more than just about you. Hate to
Correct.
tell you that. Hate to break it to you. I
Yeah.
remember when we were talking and we were planning for this podcast, I think you mentioned that there was somebody that didn't, that you thought scored pretty low, but actually did pretty well in the car.
Yeah.
Which
That's happened.
so this is the crazy part of this.
It is. It's rare, but it does happen. Usually, these tests that I'm doing, these assessments are correlated directly with one's ability to drive. But every once in a while, depending on the history, the profession, and how active and healthy this person is. So this has happened only on 2 occasions in my six and a half years of doing this, where and it was not 19s out of, it was not that low. It was they're on the cusp, okay?
Right. Okay.
Maybe a 22 or a 23 um, or 24. But they were realtors for their profession, or they were truck drivers for their profession,
Oh,
or I had
yes.
one that was a driving instructor for his profession.
Oh,
So
wow.
talk about, of course, he knew the road signs backwards and forwards. He could school me. He knew the rules of the road. They had muscle memory. The woman that was the realtor, she grew up using a street guide. We didn't
Yes.
have technology. We didn't have GPS. So she knew where everything was. She never got lost. She just, again, it was ingrained in her. So that was so fascinating for me to see that they compensated very well because of they were active people. They, were very, very social still. So they were activating their mind and their body. And they also had a job where they drove for a living. So that combination made up for the little bit of cognitive deficit. So it's rare, but that's why I'm glad I usually will do the driving evaluation, because the doctors a lot of times are like, wow, they drove that well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did it.
Very, very
Did.
surprising sometimes. Very
Exactly. So they're
surprising
going to get a little
sometimes.
more time to drive before we talk about retiring their keys, because they are doing so well. And
Yes.
they are driving still. They're not driving once every 3 months or something.
Yes.
The
Yes.
skills are sharp.
And then, maybe it's best that they're not taking their whole retirement community with them in the car, because that
Right.
can be upsetting and overstress the driver as well. But I've seen that happen. It's like, oh, she's the driver and I'm the shopper. Oh, heaven
Mhm.
help us all. But let's just be honest. And I'm going to go back to what you said, that you're problem solving. And this is what we need to do for folks, because we know that socialization is important, but isolation is a killer. And
Yes.
so when we do have to give up driving, then finding another solution is wonderful. So
Right.
I thank you for all of the things that you do and Senior Care Authority do to help families as they're navigating these difficult places. And of course, then from there you can have a conversation about, uh, do you feel that, maybe they would say, well, you know what, now I think it's important for us to find a community that would offer transportation. They could
Right.
start that process at that time. And then they're right there with Erin. They've met her. They know how she works. And then she'll be able to handhold from there. So it's a wonderful opportunity for folks to get really solid information from a professional who is trained. Erin, you've listened to my podcast before, and I always like to offer a caregiver tip. And so, as a professional who is working with placement with families or beyond driving with dignity, and also technology that seniors can use in their home, what is a good caregiver tip that you would like to offer to my listeners today?
Basically that it is never too early to start the process and have these conversations. And I actually say it's better to have the conversations frequently over time. Um, we can help in a crisis, we can, but there's going to be fewer choices. So to give that person the dignity and to give them choices and to feel empowered through, the aging transition, let's have these conversations often and early so that we can have choices and have mom and dad be part of that and not wait until something happens. Let's be proactive and not reactive.
Yes. And so when we're working with people with dementia, that's not like, let's open the door and you've got 15 choices. What happens is that you're offering two choices. Would you like to give your keys up, or would you like to have a driving evaluation? Those are two
Exactly.
choices. Would you like to continue to remain at home, or would you like to move into a community? Okay, you're
Right.
choosing home. All right, so this is what the family can do. This is what caregivers can do. Let's put that in place. So I had to do this for a client too. And he's like, Linda, you're not giving me many choices. I said, I'm giving you two choices. You get to choose. Which one do you want? Well, I don't like those choices. So I'm sorry. There are two choices that are appropriate for your loved one at this time.
Absolutely.
And you know what? He realized it. But when we narrow those parameters, it's so much easier to make a choice. And it's
Absolutely.
not based on the family's feeling. It's not based on anything but rock solid evidence and assessments that a professional has delivered. And, that's why I always advocate for that professional assessment. So I thank you so much for being with me today, Erin. And I know people are going to want to get in touch with you. So the name of your franchise, how to contact you, email address, all that stuff.
All
Love.
that good stuff.
All that
So
good
it's
stuff.
all that goodness. Senior Care Authority. I'm Senior Care Authority of St. Louis, but we're in almost every state. So you can look us up on the web, seniorcareauthority.com /STLOUIS, all one word. You can reach me at 314-451-2255 or email me, Erin at seniorcareauthority.com. And I have 3 wonderful senior care advisors that are on my team that work with me. So there's 4 of us. 4 heads are better than one. So I really love what I do, and we love to help seniors and their families.
Well, that's very obvious. And I, listeners, I'm going to have that in the show notes. So don't worry if you didn't get that or you're driving. We don't want you to have an accident either. But I do hope that listening to Erin and having this discussion has helped your blood pressure go down a little bit. I like my listeners to know that education is empowering and that there's nothing better than a professional assessment and referral. But I also know that all professionals are not created equal. So you want to do your screening and ask your specific questions that will help you feel like you've got competent help. So again, Erin, thanks so much for being with us today. Listeners, thank you for joining me for Beyond Driving with Dignity and having those difficult conversations. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Please remember that this podcast is intended as guidance and not advice. Share this podcast with friends and family who are currently in crisis mode or with people who would like to start developing their own roadmap for aging in place. Listeners, if you would like a deeper dive into a topic discussed during a podcast, please subscribe to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers, where you will be able to access premium content. Or if you would like to suggest a topic for this podcast, please contact me at linda.agingstrategies@gmail.com. As always, I value the time you spend with me.